Hello everybody, with Overwatch League Season 3 kicking off in barely more than 3 weeks' time, I thought it'd be fun to get into some of the 4 key headlines that I think you should be on the watch for this season. Of course, I'm sure most of you have heard by now that there's been a lot of change in the casting department for this season. That's the first one I'm talking about. All the new casters going on. There's been a lot of negative talk about it, with some of the key casters like Doa and Monte Cristo, and some others like Puckett leaving the cast. I think there hasn't been enough talk about the positive things that come with it. Obviously, the picture of Jacob here because he's joining the team this year, the casting team from the Houston Outlaws after he retired, and I think it'll be really fun to get some experience and view from a pro's perspective, which we really don't get a ton, especially from like a live casting during the match type of thing. And not even just him, there are other smaller streamers, I guess, that are coming to join the team that we really haven't been able to see much unless you've been like following a lot more of like the niche Overwatch community, I suppose. And it'll be awesome to see some of these new, fresh perspectives and people who might not have had this chance otherwise. Obviously, I'm going to miss some of the old casters, but I think it's exciting, and we should be excited to see what these guys can bring to the table. Next up is the meta. Obviously, 222 Rollock was implemented in the 4th stage last season, which kind of threw off the middle of the season. You know, it's kind of like if in soccer handballs were suddenly allowed halfway through the season, and kind of changed things up. And so there was lots of discussion about how that would throw off a lot of the teams that had worked so hard through the Ghost meta for the rest of the season. But this year, every team has had a lot of time to prepare and train as a team without having to split their time between the current meta and then the future meta that might be coming up. So with 222, hopefully we'll see some interesting comps, not just the same thing over and over, even if it's a variety as it goes through the season. It'll be interesting to see how these teams have adapted to having a full off-season to work on it. Not only that, but because of the new meta, we might see some more players from the first season who kind of, dropped off, not necessarily because of their skill, but just simply because of the meta. For example, Sabiobi didn't get much playtime last season, even though in the first season he was regarded as one of the better, more popular players in the league. So hopefully that we'll be able to see a lot more players return to form and some more interesting comps. And even without that, I think everyone's looking forward to a season without GOATs. Next up, of course, the homestands. Every team is required to have 2 homestands this season with a maximum of 5. I talked about this in one of my previous Overwatch videos, that I think it's super exciting that this is a regular thing now, because with other esports, we get a lot of in-person events, but that's usually for championships and playoffs, which are exciting, yeah, but I think it'll be awesome that we'll be able to experience the regular season in person, more like a traditional sport would. And I think this will add a lot of opportunity for fans to get involved that we wouldn't have otherwise. I, for one, am probably not going to be able to see one, but I know I'd love to if I get the opportunity. I'm like trying to scout out what all the schedules are for the ones within a few hours drive of me. I haven't looked at which teams are getting more homestands than others, but I think it'll add an interesting dynamic to the scheduling, because I love watching the Overwatch League the same I would with any traditional sport. But the thing is, a lot of times with traditional sports, they're all on at like the same time. For example, the NFL has all their games, not all obviously, but most of their games, Sunday afternoon, 1 o'clock. And if you're watching your favorite team, you don't really get a chance to watch the rest of the games going on at the time, unless you only watch the highlights later. But I really don't like watching highlights as much as the full game. You just don't get a feel of what's going on and how one team might be outplaying each other and just like, the fancy flashy plays. And so I think this is exciting because, like, especially if they go throughout the week and stuff, if you're busy, man, you missed the live event, now you have to go watch the replay or just watch the highlights. This will make it so you can spend a lot more time throughout the week, I guess it's still mostly on the weekend, but there will be more times because, some games are in China and others are in London. That's a huge time zone difference for when the games are going to be shown. And hopefully you'll be able to watch a lot more of them at different times. And obviously this will be very good for some of those countries across the world who, back when it was in LA, wouldn't have been able to watch the games live as much unless they stayed up till 2 in the morning or woke up really in the morning, stuff like that. And so I think this is overall a great change, and I think it's exciting. I think if this is successful, whoops, I almost just dropped something. If this is successful, along with the Call of Duty World League that Activision Blizzard's launching this year, I think it'll be huge for the esports industry, because I think this has huge potential, not only from a financial perspective for the companies, but for the fans' experience. Next up, my number one point to be watching for this season is the roster overhaul. This is a picture from an article by Blizzard about the off-season's player-like transactions from trades and promotions and retirements and all that stuff. And man, it's going to be different. Like, it feels so different from the first season, doesn't it? In the first season, we had no rule lock, a way different meta, and so obviously teams have to adjust to a constantly changing game more than they would in any traditional sport, which is exciting. You get to see a lot of new players, but I mean, now a lot of your favorite players are gone. For example, the Los Angeles Valiant, the Washington Justice, and specifically the London Spitfire. They don't have a single player left from their championship season, at least a starter. Which, I mean, like I was saying, it's esports. It changes a lot, and you have to adapt. But it's going to be weird. It's going to feel like a completely different league almost. Obviously, for the most part, I am excited for it, though. I think it'll be cool. Especially now as the scene gets more and more developed, we're going to see a lot more promotions. For example, right here you can see right under the Overhaul rosters, little number thing, October 31st, the Atlanta Reign promoted Xander Huck, I have no idea how to make, I'm going to say, from the Atlanta Academy. And I think that's extremely exciting. Because in traditional sports, I love watching a young prospect develop. And now that the scene's been around for a few more years, it's awesome to see that these path to pro guys being able to come up and make it in the big leagues. And I think we'll see a lot more of this as the season goes through the months, as some teams fall through the contention and they want to make a desperate change. They might have some of their guys pulled up to try to, change something up if they see more potential. If they're in a situation where they know the season's over, they might bring up some guys to give them experience. Or if a team's right in the middle of contention but they have a weak spot, to see if they can fix it without having to spend resources otherwise to acquire other players. Either way, I think it's super exciting. I can't wait to see some of these players as they develop, and obviously some of our favorite players will still be returning for a third season. And it's exciting to see this league develop. I've talked to my dad before, some friends, that like all the major expansion teams in major American sports, besides MLS, I'm super excited about their expansion. Like the NFL, MLB, all that stuff. I haven't been around for any expansion teams when I was old enough to remember them. And so for this, obviously last season we had a lot of expansion teams, but the league's still so new. Like, when you ask someone like, what's Super Bowl, is like, oh man, I don't know, 50 something, right? But with this, we're right in the middle of a beginning of a league, and that's super exciting to me. We get to see like the foundations of this league and some of these players who are going to go down as legends of the game. And, Jonak, for example. Everybody loves Jonak. How cool is it we get to see him through all of his beginning seasons? That'll be it for this video, guys. I'll see you next time.
Oh, were you doing a video?
Yeah.